So, welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers. With me today is my dear friend Masha. She's joining us from Miami. She is a spiritual guide and a life coach. She's also a meditation teacher and one of my spiritual teachers. So, welcome in, Masha.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Um,
It's a beautiful day here in Las Vegas, and I'm really grounded in this morning. I'm feeling really good. How about you?
I feel good as well. I've been doing my practice, so that is the ultimate, um, in my opinion, the ultimate truth. If you do your practices each day, then you show up as your best self, no matter what happened the day before or what happened 5 minutes ago.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. And your practice right now is you get up at what, 5 or 6 to do your meditation?
My body has naturally been waking me up around 5. Today I slept in a little bit, so I did start at 6:30 with my meditation.
hmm
I just noticed that if it's like any later than getting up, gotta get up before sunrise. I don't know why that is to tackle an hour of meditation.
Yeah, well, there's so many teachers out there in India and other countries that say that there is this pocket, right, between like 4:30 a.m. and sunrise where it's the quietest time of the day. Everybody's sleeping, for the majority of the population in your area at least, right? Like, you have uh, people that went to the bars, they're already back and sleeping. People that are going to work usually aren't up yet. And so it's a really, really quiet, pristine time. They call it the Amrit Vela, where the veil is the thinnest between this realm
Mhm.
and the spiritual realm. So, yeah, there's a whole beautiful science around it. So, yeah, thanks again for coming on. And I think it'd be really awesome to hear about your spiritual journey, how everything started for you, how you got into meditation. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So I think my spiritual journey started when I was little, probably moving from a country where I got baptized, Russian Orthodox, and I guess growing up Christian, and then moving to Israel where I learned about Judaism and being partially Jewish. So, like, spirituality for me started then because I never felt like I belonged to either religions because they kind of like I didn't feel like I fit in in either countries or either religions, and I kind of was like made fun of for not like being one.
hmm
So I thought that was really weird from a very young age that like God, that this beautiful energy that's loving you, that's created you, that there is division, that there is separation, that there is like hate, that there is choice of who's better and who's going to heaven and who's going to hell, right? So that was kind of the beginning of my spiritual journey. So as I got older, moved to America and I started to explore spirituality, I discovered meditation. And I heard this quote is that when you are praying, you're talking to God, and when you're meditating, you listen. And it
Mm,
really resonated with me.
I
So
love
I
that.
started practicing, yeah, started practicing yoga at 12 years old, thanks to my dad. So that was like my introduction to meditation, I guess. It wasn't until I was 20 years old that I was like, oh, what is this meditation center in the corner of where I lived in San Jose? Oh, I'm gonna go check it out. And I just went and started practicing a little bit of meditation here and there. And I'm, oh, this is really nice. Like, okay, I can do this. So that was kind of like part of my routine, going to yoga, going to meditation, practicing. It wasn't really until though the age of 25 when my mom was diagnosed with stage 4B cancer and passed away pretty quickly, that I really had that spiritual awakening. I remember as she was passing, she's laying on the bed, and I'm just laying next to her for 3 straight days because I know she's going, and I could just like see this light that was like the entrance to something else. And that's when I had that like realization that there is something greater than us, that there's this connection to oneness, and that oneness is only love.
Wow.
And yeah,
Wow, that's amazing. So what can you describe that a little bit? Like what was that light like? Was it in the room? Was it above? Was it kind of like a film? Like what did it look like to you?
honestly, it was more of a feeling, like an
Okay.
internal experience,
Mm-hmm.
and it just felt like light,
Mm.
light and love,
Mm-hmm.
the best way that I can describe it. Like
Wow.
an overwhelming sense of love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I can relate to that. My mom also passed when I was 30. So, and my spiritual awakening started around 25 as well. And when she crossed over, it was very, very deep. Like it was very peaceful. Uh, she was still very aware before she left. So we told each other we loved each other, we forgave each other. She had been paralyzed from the chest up for 5 years. And so she was in hospice, very emaciated, very skinny, and she was ready to go. And it was her time, and it was right before COVID hit, right before. And if she was very nervous and worried about those kind of things. So I'm really happy that she didn't experience that. But I think it was divine timing for her soul to choose that time to go. And when she was transitioning, my dad was with her in the hospice, and I was at home meditating. And I I'm getting chills because there was this experience that happened where I could feel her. Like her spirit came to me and sat down next to me and meditated with me and like told me I'm okay and I'm free. And she was like so happy to be moving again, because she couldn't walk for 5 years. And she just was so full of joy. Her spirit was just ecstatic, and I was like so happy for her. And I had spoken with some of my teachers at the time, and they guided me to on how to energetically, like with Reiki and these long distance types of healings, to help her spirit fully move out of her body and
Wow.
out into the next realm. And so um, it was for me, it was just this moment of joy, and I had that closure, because we did love each other so much, and we did forgive each other, and it was very genuine, and so yeah, it was very different than for other people. Like I didn't grieve as much, and I mean I cried, and those kind of things, but it wasn't so heavy on me because I had this understanding, or understanding as I like to call it, that this was her time, and this was the best thing for her in that moment. Her bodysuit wasn't serving her anymore, So yeah, it's a really, really some people think, oh my God, what am I gonna do if and when I lose a parent? Even when they're older, right? Like in their 60s,
Mhm.
70s, sometimes, people live to be over 100. And so, um, for those people listening, I think it's just the knowing, right? That like they're with us all the time now. Like my
Mhm.
mom would still comes to me as birds or as butterflies or dragonflies, and I just know it. Like I know it's her. I can feel her energy, and I she's guiding me from that other side. Have you had those types of experiences as well?
The most recent one was like I asked my mom to be present with me and the Vipassana that I recently did, and like this cat that like we put a picture of my mom on her grave, and she's with this black and white cat with green eyes, and there was this black and white cat with green eyes at the center, at the meditation center, and like
Wow.
after like I asked for that, I'm like, I wish you were here, like showing yourself to me. The cat started sleeping next to my tent in my like little cart, and then that was its bed. Like for the rest of the time that I was there, he'd just hang out with me and sleep there. So that was a big sign for me.
And that was the cat that your mom used to have, right? The same colors and
Yeah,
everything.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So that
That's
was like,
that's really beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. Yeah,
mhm.
it's a really, really special experience to have, to be guided from that other side. I feel
Mhm.
like my mom is able to guide me through she brings people into my life, like she
Mhm.
helped guide my partner to me, my girlfriend right now. She's helped guide different people that I need, different teachers, different friends
Mhm.
that I need in my life in the moment, and even experiences, that are shaping me, that are making me become more independent or financially stable or whatever that is. And it's a really, really beautiful perspective shift, right? Because some people stay in that grief, some people stay in that suffering for sometimes the rest of their lives, sometimes for many, many years. And uh, one of the things that I've learned on my spiritual journey is like shifting the perspective, shifting the beliefs shapes everything around and continues to every day, you know? So you had mentioned Vipassana, right? So can
Yeah.
you tell me, for those listeners who've never heard of Vipassana, can you share a little bit about what Vipassana is and how many times you've done it? I know you recently just got out of one, right?
Yes. Vipassana is 10 days of silent meditation, and you don't speak for 10 days. You turn in your phone, so you can't have phone. You don't have any entertainment. You only eat twice a day, so only breakfast and lunch. And there's many more rules, but those are kind of like the primary ones. And then you obviously meditate for majority of the day. When you're not like resting or eating, you're doing either a walking meditation, a sitting meditation, and in this specific one that I went to, it was different than what most people know about the Goenka Vipassana, which is the first thing that I did the first time around once my mom passed.
How do you
That
pronounce
was
that?
Goenka. He's a
Goenka.
teacher.
Oh,
He's
okay.
the of like the Vipassanas that are across the world. Like that's the primary kind of sect, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Christianity has many sects, and Judaism, Buddhism also has many sects. So there's like ones like that are more focused on like calming the mind and peaceful. And then there's ones that are more focused on like suffering and pain.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, my dad's working with a teacher right now from Australia who had reached enlightenment through that type of practice where you focus on the pain and you just continue to dissolve it and release it. And so,
Yeah.
is that the one that you
That,
just did?
yeah.
Okay.
I had no idea what was coming. I was expecting that it was going to be the same as Goenka, where we just focus on the breath, focus on the body, focus on the sensations. But this one was like, no, life is all about suffering from the moment you're born to the moment you die. You fall, you get sick, you get injured, and there's always pain. There's always suffering in the body. So can
Mm,
you observe and become like the observer basically and like detach yourself from this suffering and not have so much clinging to this attachment that we as humans have. I think most everyone who's listening are probably familiar with Eckhart Tolle and the Power of Now and how he talks about the pain body.
hmm
So this is very similar. This is like we all live in this pain body, the suffering, but we are always chasing happiness and trying to avoid the suffering, trying to alleviate it, right? Like trying, what's the quick fix? Oh, something hurts, let me put some like cream on it, or like,
numbing, right?
yeah,
Numbing
something
out.
itches, I can't stop itching, let me put some itch cream on it. Like, so it's like, no, it's inevitable. Can you just watch it and then allow it to disappear? And I
Mm.
think that was very, very profound for me this time around. I really, really, really put everything in perspective, like back on track.
Okay, so if you have an itch, you're not supposed to touch it. If you have a little pain in your finger, don't look at it. You just observe it from an internal place, right?
Even uh, going as far as like, I mean, obviously, if it's a sickness where you can do something about it and you want to alleviate it, I'm gonna go really as far as cancer. Like you have cancer, but you're not cancer, right? So if you are spinning your mind, spinning the thoughts into, I mean, they've done a lot of studies about this. Like someone goes in for um, a checkup and the doctor misdiagnoses them, and then they end up like dying. And then they do a biopsy, and this person never had this cancer or disease. So, like, basically our mind is so powerful to either create medicine or create poison, literally. So it's like if you have something or you're diagnosed with something, are you spinning your mind? Is your thoughts, is your yourself like so attached to this diagnosis? So the practice is, if you're doing the practice and sitting in meditation for an hour, things are going to hurt. Your knees are going to hurt. Your back is going to hurt. But can you watch it and not adjust the pain, not adjust the knees, not shift, not move, and just like watch it and then come back to the body sitting, come back to the breath.
Okay, okay. So in this experience, right? Did you ever reach a point where the pain dissipated?
Yes, all the
Okay,
time.
okay, amazing. So how did you have any concept, because there's no phone, there's no clock. Did you have any concept of like how long it would take? Would it vary?
I know that the more painful it was, and the more that I was able to like push through it, basically allow it to dissipate, then I would reach this like aha, like whoa, like bliss state, like
Mm,
of feeling of realization that like I can overcome anything,
hmm
that nothing is impossible. Like we are able and capable of anything we set our mind to.
Yeah. Yeah, we're really limitless, and the only things that are limiting us really are our beliefs.
Exactly.
So, okay, so the first day, did you reach that place or
No,
no? Okay.
took me like 5 or 6 days to really
Okay.
reach
Okay. Okay. And then when you reached it, were you like, "Whoa, that was amazing," or what
it.
was
And
your
as soon as
reaction?
you're like, whoa, then you're out of it. So
Oh, okay.
you really have to just become the observer of the mind and the body. And when you're observing the mind, like who's saying whoa, like that's the mind. That's
Hmm.
already so there's almost like three entities in you. There is the body, there is the mind, and then there is the no self.
Like the spirit.
Yeah, there is like the observer of everything that's happening. So
Hmm.
you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're like the separate third. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Wow. So as soon as you would start being in amazement of it, it would just like that come, the pain
Mhm.
would all flood back.
Not necessarily because you watch the pain disappear, so the pain disappeared for that moment
Hmm.
until a new pain arises. But it's just the bliss state, like you have a glimpse of it, the no self, that
Okay.
like almost like almost like you're levitating, like you're disconnected from the body, you're disconnected from the mind, and it's just like you could feel like it's like this, you're just around. It's like you're this energy around the body, and you could feel this like almost like a film, like a thin veil around the bodies. Is the best that I can describe it.
Do you
And
think that's the aura,
I
or do you think that's something different?
don't know. I mean, I can't describe it in words, or I'm not able to explain it. It's just a sensation.
Okay. Okay.
And it
Well,
and at that moment there is no thought. So there is no self. So
uh-huh.
you're just like nothing in that moment.
Right. Okay. Wow, that's really beautiful. Really
Mhm.
beautiful. So those first 5 days, are you having lots of thoughts and are you just letting them kind of come and go? What was your process of getting to that no self?
Honestly, it's the practice. It's if you commit to, I mean, they told me I was the only non-Thai person in this retreat. So someone like had told me like a lot of foreigners don't don't last past 3 days, past 5 days, past 7 days. So it's really just like the commitment. Hey, I'm committing to completing this 10-day course. I'm going to commit to waking up at 4 in the morning and coming to the meditation hall. And I'm committing to doing all the tasks that are assigned by the master. And I'm committing to sitting, and I'm committing to following the instructions, which is like, hey, if the pain comes, observe, let it pass. So it's all about the work. That's why they're so adamant about like when you get out, like meditate for an hour every day, like, or else you lose the magic. Like
Hmm.
it's not something like you come and then you leave and it's there with you forever.
Hmm.
Kind of like, if you're healthy, if you're eating healthy for 1 week and you're trying to lose weight and all of a sudden you saw like a couple pounds drop off and then you're like, okay, great. And then you go back to your old ways.
Right.
What happened?
Right.
So that's
Yeah,
why
it,
I'm
it
like,
yeah, it is like an energetic cleanse or like an energetic sh like a attunement, shower, clearing. It's so important to do on a daily basis because otherwise it seems as though the frequency starts to drop and everything is frequency in this reality. Even, science has shown even the table, the plants, everything is vibration, right? And so uh we being what almost over 80% water, we're vibrating. If you watch those videos online, right, of like sound and waves moving through water, like that's all happening
Mhm.
in our body and we are frequencies. So depending on the habits and the things we choose is how we're going to vibrate, right?
Mhm.
So that's really beautiful. So this teacher, is he from Thailand? Is that why there were so many people from Thailand there? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And is that type of Buddhism primarily in Thailand or is it, do you know about that?
Well, we were actually chanting in Pali, which is language that Buddha spoke, which is um, a dialect in India.
Okay.
So he went to like the Buddhist school. So it was very, very much like the, I mean, I would say like the Indian version, but I don't think I mean, honestly, actually, I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
But I just
No,
know we were chanting in Pali, which is Indian.
okay. Okay. And so when are you chanting those mantras? Is it before the meditation, during, after?
So we would chant every morning, 4 a.m. for an hour.
Okay.
Sitting on, oh, here's how it was different from the calmness meditation. We were sitting on our feet. So, like rock pose.
Okay.
Yeah. So not cross-legged. So while we're meditating, you're sitting on your feet and the circulation, your blood circulation from your knees down just cuts off.
Right.
So you just can't feel your feet for like the last 30 minutes. And then when you take them out, it's just burns, like as if someone's like stabbing you with like knives. And that was part of the process, like part of the experiencing the suffering and not like screaming. Because inside, when I first sat down and did that, I was like, what the I wanted to like yell, like
Uh-huh.
get it out. So part of the lessons, part of the teachings is like, are you able to notice the sensations and the feelings that arise in your body and also allow them to dissipate? So like in the real world, someone's gonna trigger you, someone's gonna yell at you, like it's inevitable, like suffering, people pass it down, right? If someone they say if someone's been abused, sometimes they end up being the abuser, unfortunately. So like you're gonna be surrounded with those types of situations. So are you able to like watch that like pain arise, that like anger, frustration, whatever it is, and not put it back onto someone, not scream, not react. So that was definitely a big lesson.
Okay. Okay. So you're chanting for an hour,
Yeah.
right? And then what's happening after that?
Then you sit cross-legged for an hour and meditate and listen to a Dhamma talk.
Okay. So the main
Mhm.
teacher is doing a talk while you're
Yes.
meditating. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
that
sometimes
goes
you,
till 6 a.m. usually?
and then we do a walking meditation.
Okay. Okay. And is
Yeah.
that also traditional in the other type of Vipassana you mentioned?
In yes, Goenka's Vipassana, we did do a walking meditation as well.
Okay. And the diet is very specific. You're not eating any meat.
Actually, this one they didn't care about that.
Oh, really?
So there was plenty of like pork, which actually like wasn't digesting. So I like really wished that there was like a vibrational plate.
Hmm.
Like randomly, I wished for that, and then the next day, like someone had ordered one from Amazon, and it was standing right next to my tent. And I
Wow.
was like, Yeah. Everything that like I asked for that was like small just like appeared.
Hmm.
Um, and that's been happening since I've been back as well in all kinds of ways.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, we'll dive into that. But
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I haven't heard of that before. And most of these ashrams and these types of temples, they are strictly vegetarian. So that's really interesting. So is it pork or they also do beef and chicken as well?
Yeah, all kinds of things. And
Okay.
so there is 8 precepts. So, and one of them is not to kill. So I did ask about that. I'm like, well, if the precept like that the monks follow and one of them is no killing, I'm like, how come there is meat?
Right.
And the master is like, well, if the meat is available in the store, the supermarket, or the butcher, like, you're not the one who killed it. So you're eating like whatever is available, whatever is there. But you yourself are not supposed to be killing, like, so you don't continue your karma, right? So you don't continue to reincarnate. And that goes to like to everything. So like if you're practicing, um, if you're trying to reach enlightenment and you're practicing, you're not supposed to be like in any field like exterminator or like a weed kill. Like you're not supposed to be providing weed killers or selling that. And yeah, you're not supposed to be killing, but if you're purchasing, doesn't count.
That's really interesting. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. I've never heard that before. That's really interesting. Okay.
And
Um,
And if people are bringing it to you, like the center is functioned on donation base, right? So I watched people come and just drop off groceries. So
mhm.
like whatever people are like dropping off, whatever donations they're receiving, that's what they're feeding us.
Okay.
So that's what,
Okay. And at the other Vipassana that you did, was that strictly vegetarian?
correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I've been to a place in San Diego, near Escondido, which is called Deer Park, where they have a Vietnamese type of Buddhism.
Okay.
And they do a walking meditation, or they were doing, I don't know if they still do, they were doing a walking meditation every Sunday, where it's complete silence and you walk around, and then they feed you a vegan meal, followed by a beautiful talk and
Mhm.
meditation as well. So, um, yeah, that's really interesting because I haven't done a Vipassana myself. It's definitely on my list, but that was kind of the closest that I've come to one of those facilities. So, um,
Our friend Sarah works there.
in in the one you just went to? Oh, in Deer
No,
Park.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, that place is really special if you're in SoCal. I highly recommend visiting that place. And then right near there, there's a Tibetan Buddhist temple. That's really
Really?
beautiful. Yeah,
Wow.
like within 15-minute drive. And I've been there a few times and that one's really beautiful. They have a really nice energy in there to meditate, and they hold service. They hold service weekly, and when Dalai Lama comes to San Diego, that's where he stays.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So it's a really high vibe place. They both are. So okay. So do you have any other experiences that you had that you'd like to share during your Vipassana?
I just want to share that simple technique that everyone can use in their daily life.
Okay, sounds
So
great.
when you do sit down and just close your eyes and meditate, you don't focus on controlling the breath. So this isn't breath work. You're just focused on observing the body and how it's sitting and breathing. And you don't suppress the thoughts. Some people think that in meditation you're supposed to shut off your thoughts, but no, it's completely normal and acceptable to allow the thoughts to enter. And then you just return to your sitting meditation, to feeling the body sitting in this place, feeling the breath in this place.
Beautiful.
Really wanted to share that.
Beautiful. And I can
Mhm.
tell because I know you, we've been friends for several years. I can tell this retreat had a really beautiful effect on you. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really special.
Yeah.
So now that you're back, you're doing your meditation every morning for an hour, and that's something you're basically committing to for the rest of your life, right? This is a daily practice.
I'm really, really, yes, yes.
Mhm.
My intention is to do that. And then obviously, like, I know that if I ever need a reset, a reboot, I know I know what to reach for.
Mhm.
It's just like a no-brainer.
Mhm. So, which is meditation, right?
Yeah, which is like going to another Vipassana or doing it on my own. So, but seeing the magic that's been unfolding ever since I've been back as well, it's just, there's no doubt that there is something greater, that there is this energy field that's around us that you can't really explain. And all you need to do to tap into it is to be in stillness for a little bit.
hmm hmm Yeah, that brought up something that I noticed in my own practice when I went to Costa Rica. I lived in an ashram down there for a month. And I remember my travels getting down there were really nerve-wracking for me. It was a country, it's my first time traveling alone to a country
Mhm.
where it wasn't my primary language. I speak a little bit of Spanish, but it was there was a lot of unknowns getting down there, right? Like I didn't know how I was gonna get a ride down there to the ashram. I didn't know these people. Like everything was new, but I knew I had to do it. And I
Mhm.
remember getting down there and my whole nervous system's like shaken up, right? Like I'm just stressed out, And I was like, you know what? I'm here. I'm in this beautiful rainforest now. They have 500 acres of jungle and two waterfalls
Wow.
there. I'm like, okay, I'm here. I can relax now, right? And so the first thing I did was I sat down and I meditated, and it took me about 2 hours to to get my nervous system to fully reset and to fully calm down. But that was really empowering for me because I was like, even at one of the most stressed experiences, I can still reach that 0 point or that centered state just by sitting by
Mhm.
myself in silence for 2 hours. So that was really beautiful for me because I'll never forget that I can
Mhm.
always find 2 hours to reset my system
Mm.
with no matter what's happening in my life. And you know, it really helped that it was a really beautiful scenario and scenery and everything, but anybody can do that in any place, right? Like
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, people can find a quiet place to sit down and just allow their body to ground in, to center, to come back to the breath. And so yeah, that was a really powerful experience for me for sure. So
Yeah. I want to share a story that's similar to yours and like how true it is. After I came back just this past week, my client came over and we did our usual like talk therapy, and then he's like, "Okay, I'm ready like to level up my practice." I'm like, "Okay, let's sit for an hour and meditate." So
Mm.
we sat for an hour, we meditated, and then he left and I went to sleep and his car wouldn't start.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, his car wouldn't start. He ended up going home, and then the next morning he comes back with a battery, and I'm like, "Oh, what happened?" He's like, "Well, normally I would be freaking out in that type of situation. But you know what? I went home. I even enjoyed myself.
Mm.
And then I knew everything would be fine. I knew that I would figure it out. But normally I would have had like an anxiety attack. Like it would have been so stressful. But I'm like, that's it. Like if you do this practice, you're just any challenge that this life will throw at you, which is inevitable because everything is impermanent. Nothing is here forever. You're just equipped to know how to regulate you don't even need to know how to regulate your nervous system. You'll just automatically already be in tune, right?
Yeah, the body's amazing in that way. You know, the body is so there's so much the body can do that most people just don't haven't tapped into yet. Like I know I learned about myofascial unwinding, and that was a really profound experience for me because the myofascia, just to give people a little backstory on what it is and what myofascial unwinding is, basically every single cell, every single muscle fiber, every not every cell, but every muscle fiber, every part of your body is surrounded by these little it's kind of like when you get a piece of chicken, right? There's that white film on it. That's the myofascia. And so we have that all through our body. That's what surrounds all of our muscle fibers. Then the bundles are surrounded by that. Then every muscle, every part of our body has myofascia. And so that myofascia holds energy and it holds memories, it holds trauma. And so, what myofascial unwinding does is it's a technique that is similar to craniosacral, which is craniosacral is like people apply some pressure at the suboccipital ridge in the back of your head, and then there's a lot more to it, but basically with myofascial unwinding, you do something similar to that. You apply a little bit of pressure back there. Usually somebody else does it for you to hold the space and to do that. And then they hold your head until your body starts to relax. And then when the
Mm.
body relaxes into that meditative state, then it starts to unwind, where it's just like moving in all types of strange ways that like normally your body doesn't move in. So for example, all mammals have this, right? Where, if an animal is being hunted, like a deer or a
Mhm.
bear, for example, right? They'll find a quiet place after they've reach safety, right? Like they'll find a quiet
Mhm.
place. Obviously, they're not injured or anything. That they've gotten away at this in this
Mhm.
moment. They find a
Mhm.
place because they're out of the stressful environment. So they go into this quiet place and then they lay down, and you can watch videos online of them like running really, really fast, kind of like when dogs run in their sleep. It's like that, but they'll actually relive the traumatic experience because they've left their body for that trauma and their spirit has, and then they come back in, and
Oh, wow.
it reintegrates that experience into the body. And so for humans, we after a car accident or something really traumatic, the ideal thing to do is to lay down and to let your body unwind. But most people don't do that. So the myofascia holds all that trauma in it. And then you have to face that trauma and that pain in scenarios like what you just went through. And so those thoughts start to rush in. And then if we allow it to, then the body can, like if you lay down after the meditation, for example, and allow for that body to unwind, then it allows for all that energy to be released from that. And the way to transmute it is to change the story. So, like, one of my unwinding traumas that I went through was actually completely blocked out. Like, I had no memory of it whatsoever. When I tuned into it, the
Wow.
only way I could access it was in that meditative state. And it was this, I was young. I was like probably in fourth grade. This little boy tried to drown me. And so in the myofascial unwinding, I'm doing these like flailing motions, like I'm trying to get out of the water. And in that moment, as I'm doing those motions and the myofascia is remembering, I remember the experience.
Wow.
It gets unblocked, and then I start. But then the key is to rewire the experience. So
Hmm.
for me, I started to have compassion for this little boy, right? He's young.
Hmm.
He's in some sort of a traumatic household where his parents are very strict, Russian
Hmm.
parents, and he probably was picked on by other kids, right? And or it was picked on by one of his parents or whatever, right? And so he had this what we were talking about, right? Like passed down to him from
Hmm.
somewhere, right? What either it's from another kid or from his parents or cousins or whatever, right? And so in that moment I found compassion for him. I said, "You know what? I'm going to forgive him. I'm gonna, he's a little kid and I'm gonna totally forgive him and I'm gonna let it go." And in that moment, the unwinding stopped and everything settled down. And so now I have that memory, but it's different, right? It's not this traumatic, crazy, stressful environment where I thought I was gonna die. Now it's me actually just recognizing it's just another part of my story, where this thing happened, this kid did something, and I forgive him, you know? And so I guess I wanted to bring up the myofascial unwinding because it's been a key component for me in this healing work because it's allowed for me to tune into my body. And then when I'm tuned into my body, I can feel everything that's happening. And so now I have this hyper awareness of like, oh, wow, I am holding a lot of tension in my shoulders, for example. And because of that, there's something I'm holding for someone in those muscles, in that myofascia. So then when I tune into it in meditation or with some other practices, right? There's other ways to access it, but since we're talking about meditation, when I tune into it with meditation, I can start to recognize where I've taken on other people's energy that's being held in
Hmm.
that space. And then I can let it go, and then I'm back to that centered space, and it's a daily practice of clearing that so that I can, especially because it seems like the more I advance on the spiritual journey, the more space I have to hold, and the more of these types of situations occur, and I have to learn to navigate and to reground in. So nature is a key component to that, and I know you're just as much of a nature lover as me, and
Hi.
so yeah, nature, getting your bare feet on the ground Wearing clothing,
Sunlight.
wearing clothing that's natural. Let's talk about
That
that.
was that was a big thing that I noticed when I was wearing linen during the meditation, during the retreat. Like my body felt better versus when I wore like synthetic tops. Like it
Mm,
was so interesting. Like I wanted to take off that synthetic material as quick as possible, and like I had this desire to just wear like cotton at the base or linen, and I could just feel it. I could like feel it around my skin when it wasn't natural. I just felt like, ah,
like
get it
constricted,
out.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't expanding my energy, it was contracting.
Yeah, so in Kundalini yoga, Yogi Bhajan would talk about wearing all white and wearing cotton and linen and things like that. So uh, I know linen and wool are two of the best things to wear for your frequency and for your energy field. It allows
Mhm.
for it to expand, but then when you wear wool and linen together, they cancel each other out.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, I think it's linen and wool. Don't quote me on it, but I think I think it's those two together. They cancel each other out. But if you wear just linen or just hemp or a mix of linen, hemp, and linen and or cotton, those are all really, really good. And then when you wear and the colors are really important, right? Because white expands by the teachings of Yogi Bhajan, expands your energy field by 10 feet.
Mhm.
So or more. So, but then when you wear black, it's the opposite. So it like makes your field really tight and small around you. And so if you're both have a function, right? Like if you're going into an airport or into a um some place where there's a lot of energy, a lot of people, you might want to wear black to keep your energy contained. But then
Mm.
if you want to teach and like hold a big space and be expansive in your energy, white is really good for that.
Mhm.
And so Yogi Bhajan, he would always wear white, and his students would always wear white. So he also wore a head covering made of cotton, and so that kind of like would hold the crown chakra protected from
Mhm.
from energy leaving and also from energy coming in. And so
Mhm.
those aspects, I believe, are very important, you know. And it's interesting because if I haven't worked with Nino Santos in a long time, psilocybin mushrooms, but when I would work with them in the past, there was this like desire to keep my phone as far away from me as I can and to take off all that uh, anything with plastics. And so I've been really diligent about getting that all that out of my life. So,
Mm.
and I actually got rid of almost, I'd say 99% of my black clothing too.
Wow.
Because it for me, I feel much better wearing white. I also really like colors like this, like earthy colors, because they
Mhm.
feel really grounding for me. They feel like I'm really connected to the earth. I really like greens and browns. Those are some of my favorite colors to wear. So also connecting them with chakras, right? Like if an individual feels a blockage in one of their chakras, they can wear that color to really start to work with
Mhm.
that chakra. So like obviously red is the root, orange is your sacral, solar plexus is yellow, heart is green, right? Throat, you got like a blue color. And then the third eye is like an indigo, like a dark blue, and then the crown is like a purple or a white. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a friend, and I think you know him. His name's Johnny, and he was houseless, and he lived in the town that we lived in, and he only had one pair of clothing at any given time, and he would trust the universe to provide that for him, right? Which I think is a great segue into what we were going to talk about next. And so when the universe would provide him with a shirt or pants, he would pay really close attention to the color that it would provide for him, right? And so that color would usually be in alignment with what he was working through that day or what
Wow.
he needed to work with. And so that was really fascinating for me because um, he was really tuned into that. So um, yeah, so let's dive into it. So now that you've been back, all these things are opening up for you. You're finding some things out of alignment, some things are even more in alignment. What what kind of stuff is happening for you, and what are you noticing different with being in this high frequency?
The biggest thing is the desire of staying away from people who are not doing the practice, who are not in the same frequency. The desire to communicate with them, to be around them is like significantly dropped.
Mm.
So
Okay,
that,
so that's a really interesting topic because I know during my spiritual journey, there was a moment where I had a bunch of friends in college that we would get together just to drink, right? And in college, drinking was the way, now looking back at it, that we would get into community and commune and be together and socialize and connect, right? And when I started my spiritual journey, I had a really strong knowing that I needed to drop the alcohol. I needed to stop drinking. And this year, and well, this following year, 2025, will be 10 years that I've been no alcohol at all. And so it's really interesting because during the spiritual journey, these people start to just dissipate out. Like there wasn't any like deep conversation, it just naturally happened. Some of my friends just they weren't in the frequency, and no judgment on them,
yeah.
nothing like that. It's just I don't I don't want to poison my body. I really value my temple, and I've done a lot to clear out my liver and to cleanse it and taken some really extreme plant medicines to really purge all that out, you know? And it's been a really deep cleanse, right? And with the body tuning in and to that frequency, so do those kind of things, right? And there is a period sometimes for some people where of loneliness, right? Where it's like, oh man, like who am I going to connect with? Like what am I going to do now? Like I can't go to the bar, I can't go to these parties. What am I going to do? Like what else is there to do? You know, like those are some of the things that I went through. And
Hmm.
then there's like this whole world that opened up to me, right?
Yeah.
Of like these spiritual communities that are scattered throughout the whole world now.
Mhm.
But back then, we kind of had to start them. We had to kind of create them, and they weren't as prevalent as they are now. And so one of the communities we created was in Encinitas, where we lived in San Diego, and we came together and just started meditating with a couple of friends, right? Every morning at 6:30 a.m. on the dot, we would start the meditation right by the ocean. There was this platform at Moonlight Beach where we would meet, and it was during COVID, so everybody was getting that government check, and nobody was working, and we all were able to meditate, drop in, and then it was one of the best years of my life, hands down. And then you came into the community a little bit after that,
I'm
right?
so sad. I
I know
missed
you missed that, but you still got a feel of the community because the community was already formed from that group, and you got a sense of like what a little, I would say more than a little taste of what
it.
that was like. Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
was nice.
we had grown it to 300 people at the peak, and I think we were meditating at one time. I think we had 80 people come out in the morning at 6:30 to meditate with us.
Wow.
So you
That's
can
amazing.
imagine, the power of that many people gathering in one space with intention and dropping into that deep space. And there is definitely a power in a lot of people meditating together. And
100%.
yeah, last year, um, maybe it was 2023. Yeah, I think it was 2023 that at the end of the year, I went to Washington, D.C., and one of the spiritual teachers from India came out, and he gathered everyone for this cultural event. And I think there was like close to 100,000 people there from
Wow.
the Capitol building to, um, what's that tower in Washington, D.C. called? The monument,
I don't know.
the main
Yeah.
the main monument. So in that space, he gathered like 100,000 people, and
Wow.
we ohmed, saying the word Om,
Yeah.
for three times all together, and it
Wow.
was profound. Like that was the most people I've ever been intentionally with in one space like that. And it was really beautiful because when we ohmed, it was like this vibration through Washington, D.C. and then out to the world. Because, I mean, Washington, D.C. needs it a lot. And so that vibration, that sound frequency just resonated through the all the people there and through the city. So that was really cool. That was really cool. And I know that one of your offerings is sound healing, right? And so do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Interestingly enough, I've applied to go back to Goenka Vipassana and they rejected me because of being a sound healer.
Okay, so how did they know that you were a sound healer?
They called me for like an interview because I was a returning student and they asked me uh like they asked me about my profession and what I do. So I like randomly said, "Oh, I'm a yoga teacher and I do sound healing." And they're like, "Oh, what? You do sound healing?" And they're like, "Oh, we're sorry, like that's not allowed." And they rejected
What?
me for being a sound healer.
That
Yeah.
that's wild. Did they give any explanation as to why?
Because it affects the subtle energy of the body. And if you're practicing Vipassana, you're already going so deep into your subconscious that they don't want you to use any other tools to interfere.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Um,
Fun fact.
wow. All right. Yeah, that's a really interesting fact that I would have never guessed in my life. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't know you could be rejected from going to wanting to meditate and sit for 10 days.
yeah. Wow. Okay.
So that was
Uh,
actually my solution to going to a different Vipassana center.
well,
So
that was a beautiful blessing, right? Because you got this totally different
experience.
experience where it sounds like you were able to access different levels, different parts of yourself, right?
Mhm.
Really beautiful, really beautiful. I think those kind of things, they're divinely orchestrated, you know?
I agree.
Um, and that just led you to this. So what a
Yeah.
blessing. That's amazing. Okay.
You need to
So
taste all the flavors of Buddhism, I guess.
yeah, 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 for sure. Um, one thing that the thought that came through that I wanted to mention earlier was that I believe that these little situations, like what happened to your client with the battery, they're like tests, right? They're these experiences that spirit, creator, whatever you want to call it, puts us through in order for us to learn something from it, right?
Mhm.
Whether that's patience, whether that's um, recognizing what we're capable of, how limitless we are, like how we can fix all these things, right? Like how we can put a battery in ourselves maybe, or whatever the lesson is for that person at that moment, right? And I think that uh, a big part of that is that what I've realized in the last couple of years is that we are in Earth School,
Mhm.
and we have these classes and we have these lessons, right? And we either pass them and move on to the next lesson, or we keep repeating the lesson until it gets harder and harder and we're forced to pass it because some of us are on a faster track, some of us are on a slower track, depending on our goals, depending on our timelines in this life, right? And so it's really, really interesting for me to look at it that way. Like when I'm faced with a challenge, I don't say, "Oh my God, why is this happening to me?" like I used to, right? Like, "Oh man, I'm the victim here." Like I never would say that, but now that I know a little bit more, I realize that I was talking to myself in a really negative way in those situations. Like, God, what did I do to deserve this? Like what what could have I possibly done for my car to break down in the middle of the highway right now, or whatever it is that was causing me the suffering in that moment, right? And then now I've changed that to, oh, I'm just curious about what this is trying to teach me. Let me dive into it. And yeah, there may be some moments like you were saying of frustration and anger or sadness or whatever comes up in the moment, right? But then I'm like, okay, let me just zoom out a little bit. Let me try to come back up to a higher perspective and see, has something similar to this ever happened to me before, right? Has Maybe it wasn't with the car, maybe it was a different situation that caused this same reaction in me, right? Was it something that was of a similar lesson? Let's put it that way, right? Like, was it something that was a similar lesson? And most of the time, the answer is yes. Most of the time, I get a chance to see, oh, okay, I didn't pass it there. Or the beautiful part that started happening was I started changing the way I would respond, and I wouldn't be so reactive. And then I was like, oh, okay. I remember 5 years ago, I would have totally lost it. But
Mm.
now I'm like cruising. I'm chilling through this because I realized that no matter how crazy or terrible the situation, somebody or something's going to come and help me in this moment, or something's going to, and it might be an empowerment moment for me, or it might be a patience experience for me, right? Like I remember my car broke down, the alternator went, and that's never happened to me before this year. And my car just came off the side of the highway. It started slowing down. All the electricity in the car was shutting down. Like I couldn't see how fast I was going, and it was hot. It was during the summer. I'm out in Vegas. I was driving to LA, super hot desert vibes, right? And I had to pull over to the side, and when I pulled over, it was by this hill with shade. And I was like, okay, thank God for that, number one.
Oh,
And then as I'm sitting there, all these thoughts start rushing in. How am I going to get out of this? What am I going to do? Do I even have cell service here to call someone? Thank God I did. And then thank God my girlfriend was there. She like helped me calm down and connect to my breath. And then all these people started pulling up. Like this man showed up, couldn't speak a word of English, but he was so kind and was trying to help. And then another person came and it was just so beautiful. And then that connected me to a series of events that brought this tow truck out. They hooked me up with like a good deal where this other guy was trying to scam me to get the alternator done that day so I could get to LA. And it was just a really powerful lesson for me in patience and in trust of the universe and those kind of things. So yeah, we're an Earth school, and certain ones of us are just progressing along the grades as we go. Sometimes and it's not linear, right? Like we could be in sophomore year of high school one day, and then we have a lesson back in kindergarten the next day, you know? And
yeah.
that we didn't pass, but like, it kind of alternates. And so that's the beauty of it is like that kindergarten lesson really could like jetpack you right into grad school, if you just pass that you just pass that one lesson of patience or whatever it is, right? That might seem really difficult in the moment, but then when we're on the other side of it, it's like, oh wow, okay. Now something opens up and there's like this lightness that occurs, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So with those beautiful lessons comes these gifts, right? Like different manifestations happen faster, right? Are you noticing that after the meditation too?
Oh, all day long. It's been wild. It's been so fascinating to watch just what the universe has to unfold within like moments of doing something or thinking something. It appears, it happens.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so beautiful. And what we were mentioning before the call was like how powerful it is to be surrounded by other like-minded individuals that are doing the work, because then you can manifest together and create
Hmm.
together, right? And so like being in that where when a lot of the people that we surround ourselves with are in that frequency, like we're limitless on what we can call in and connect to. But when we have other people praying for us, other people calling it in as well, it just happens so much quicker, you know? It really amplifies it. And those moments of awe and those moments of like, wow, how that's so unexplainable. Like there's if we looked at it statistically, it would be the chances of that one thing happening are like less than winning the lottery, you know? And it happened because I cleared out like one thing that people I think need to realize is like you can call something in, but then you have to let it go.
Yeah,
Right? Right? Like, and that works with everything, like
no clinging.
relationships, material possessions, money, you name it. You set as specific as you can with the universe, right? Like that's what I've learned is like being as specific as possible is really important, and then letting it go, which most people that's the for me that was the hardest part was like, okay, I want $5,000 to pay my credit card off. And then a part of me was like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna get it. Like, do I have to work like crazy, like into the night in order to get this? No, I just have to let it go and then it arrives. And also my beliefs have to be aligned with it, right? Like I have to believe that I can and will receive this. Like truly, like you can't BS creator, you can't BS yourself. You you know when you're blocking yourself, but those
I
awarenesses sometimes have to come in meditation or from a higher place, right?
really love that $5,000 right now.
Right? Right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just an example, but do you want to share a couple of examples like of things that were kind of like unexplainable that have happened to you? It doesn't have to be in the last week, just in general in your life that maybe
Yeah,
like a really big one that pops up in your mind.
oh, a big one. I mean, so many things have happened this week that it's e like on top of my mind.
Okay, sure. Let's share one of those.
I mean, just well, just today was just so many coincidences. Like I said earlier, like I wanted to get a cup of coffee and with the mug, it's like $1.10, and I thought I had enough change in my little bag, but I didn't. So I just like, oh, like I wish I had a got a free coffee. And then I walk into the coffee shop and all of a sudden they need help translating from Spanish to English and I just step in without like thinking, oh, this is gonna get me a free coffee, right? Like I just, oh, there's communication like that needs to assistance. And
Hmm.
then the owner is like, oh, thanks for your help. The coffee's on us. So just like little things like that have been happening during the meditation ever since I've been back on a daily basis. So I think that I feel like I'm really, really tapped in. Like I wanted to go to Snow Raven today. Do you know Snow Raven?
Hmm. Yeah,
And
she's
I was
amazing.
oh
She's
like
from Siberia.
yeah.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, I don't know, like about the ticket and stuff. And then some like big Instagram account reached out to me and like, hey, we want to give you a free ticket if you can take a few videos and reels. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
what? Like, what is happening right now? Like,
Amazing. Yeah, I can't wait to hear about that concert with her. Have you seen her
yeah,
before?
yeah, multiple times. I mean, we spoke and hung out. She speaks Russian.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I've never met her myself, but a lot of my friends know her and
yeah,
yeah, I know I've known of her and she's in the circle, you know,
yeah. She
of
comes here
spiritual
often,
community.
and
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
she's staying at one of my good friends' house actually.
Oh,
So
cool.
So there's
Cool.
like the potential to probably hang out. So if you come down right now to Miami,
Uh-huh.
I'll get you
Cool. Yeah, maybe
in.
we can get her on the podcast one of these days too. That would be really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to have her on. That would be really powerful to talk to her. She brings a really powerful sound and frequency when she sings. Like it's very, very potent and powerful. So that's really
I
amazing.
I agree. Yeah.
I think one thing that I really want to share and mention for people is gratitude. Like
Mm.
every day when we receive those gifts from the universe, and when we do get to call in and bring in those amazing blessings, is to stay in that gratitude. And
Mhm.
just the way you're speaking about it, for some people that may not be a big deal that they got a free coffee, right? They're just like, oh, whatever. But like I can sense by the way you're describing it how much gratitude you have and how beautiful that experience was for you. And
Mhm.
so for me, uh, it's a practice every night before I go to bed, is to show gratitude for all the things that Creator has provided for me that day and that I have called in and all the beautiful experiences I have. And then in the morning, I set the intention during my practice to be in the highest vibration and in the highest possible timeline for whatever needs to happen that day. And
Mm-hmm.
and then my job, my work is to clear out any energy that I've taken on from others and call
Mm-hmm.
my energy back to myself and then bring myself back into that centered place. So, do you find yourself setting any intentions like that throughout the day?
I always ask to be of service for the greatest good of all.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, my biggest intention. And I always am grateful. And I know that my energy impacts others. So if I'm really low energy and like really negative and down, I don't leave my, I don't leave my room.
Mm.
I keep it contained. I keep it to myself and I let myself go through whatever I'm going through and don't go out spreading it. Like if I'm down, like I don't want to like almost like contaminate the population. I just let myself feel and let myself be and go back out there when I'm feeling good.
Well, that's like a really beautiful high form of alchemy, right?
Hmm.
Like allowing ourselves to sit with whatever comes up, if it's sadness or anger, and
Hmm.
allowing ourselves to transmute it and then come out the other side.
Hmm.
So that's really beautiful. And I think that if more people did that and if more people had that capability, these tools, right? It would really help the whole planet. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on today, Masha.
Thank
It's
you.
been it's been a real blessing and honor to have you on. And I'm sure we'll do another one. Masha's actually Dasha's sister, and we had Dasha on I think our fourth episode. And so
Woo!
yeah, so um, it's really cool to have uh, both of you on here. So thank you
Thank you.
again. Until next time, blessings. Take care.